It may be combinations of loans, work studies, and so on. I see several colleges trying to get to that point, and it's one that I applaud. It takes a lot of endowment, though, to do it. I'm not certain that the government is ever in a position to well know what they should cap or not cap in terms of what universities need to do with their funds or not funds. Maybe that's because I used to be a professor and have a distrust of that whole type of regulation. But I do think that many colleges are on their own working to open the admission process so that economic capability isn't a factor. They are a really small minority of the schools. It is nowhere near enough. And we have abandoned in many states the junior college access route. We've abandoned community college support. It's just, I find it, again, I keep using the word appalling. It's just appalling at a time when we need the access to educated workers the most. We've just made it most difficult for a big chunk of our population to do it.
You point out that diversity is measured by a numbers game in corporate America today. In education, it seems we're doing something of the same thing with No Child Left Behind. We have certain standards, supposedly, which are measured, which have led many schools to simply eliminate many of the courses, such as foreign language, music, art, which would create a student, or at least help a student, have a recognition of other cultures. Any thoughts on the impact of No Child Left Behind and the goal of creating a culturally diverse population?
Now, although Kelly has a large education practice, I'm not familiar enough with the research done on the impacts of success or not of the No Child Left Behind, so no particular comment. I do at least applaud the effort, the philosophy behind the thought, which is, again, addressing the pipeline. What I have, the podium to make a few freestanding issues here. Well, one of the things I note is that we apply most of our mentoring effort at those who've already made it to college, maybe to those who are high school seniors. The fallacy in our thinking is we're applying all of our mentoring to those who are already most likely to succeed. We're not dramatically increasing the pool of those who can succeed, and at least the philosophy behind No Child Left Behind was to try to feed the pipeline further back. Now, I don't know whether it's a success or not. I don't know what the unintended consequences are. But if not that, then we fail quickly and we move on to something else. But if we don't start feeding the pipeline back more, and if we put all of our discretionary effort against those who are already most likely to succeed, we're not going to increase the pool of talent that America needs to be competitive.
Good afternoon, Mr. Camden. The question I have goes back to the comment you made about disagreement and trying to make a shift between bringing in diverse people to look a certain way as an organization, the numbership, and actually using what's best about that diversity, as opposed to I bring in people that are diverse and I train them how to be successful in that company, but it's success based on what's the dominant culture. I mean, how do you break out of that and start to get what's unique about people accepted for the good of the company, maybe move from a very competitive culture to a collaborative culture, or whatever is unique about having diversity. Some ideas that may have worked for you at Kelly.
It's always a chicken and an egg thing, right? Do you change the culture first so you can bring in the a broader array of talent, or do you bring in the broader array of talent to help break some eggs and create the new culture? I probably tend to lean towards the latter, but it's always a tough call. I think part also of what we do is that we evaluate everybody who comes into the company by can they rise to be the CEO, can they rise to be that, and instead of saying, do they bring a contribution that would be unique to the company, as you were saying, do they add a unique aspect to it? When you ask, as I ask my colleagues as we talk about these issues, do you even know how many of your top management team were ever on public assistance? Do you ever know what percentage of your SVPs paid for their own college education rather than having family paid for it? Do you know how many of them grew indeed? And they say, well, can we even ask those questions? And I don't know. But the point is that there's other things we need to think about, in terms of looking. And I know how hard it is to bring in people into a culture. Heck, I was an academic who moved into the business world. Talk about a tremendous change in cultures. business world being much less bureaucratic. But but found that I was often employed as an agent to make some of those changes. So I tend to be on the side of you bring the talent in and you hope to mix things up a bit.
Today at the City Club of Cleveland Forum, we have been listening to Carl Camden, President and CEO of Kelly Services, Inc. Thank you, Mr. Camden. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.
Thank you.